You know, there's this one word that's just everywhere. I mean, it's on our coffee mugs, it's plastered all over corporate mission statements, it's definitely all over your social media feed. And that word? It's empowerment, right? The whole story we're told, the whole cultural narrative is that you're supposed to be the architect of your own reality. We're constantly sold this idea of, sovereignty, manifestation, that boss energy. It's this promise that you can, and really, that you should be bigger than whatever circumstances you're in. But what if that's a trap? What if this constant chase, this endless drive to be all-powerful and in control of every little thing, what if that's the very thing that's making us so exhausted and, frankly, unhappy? Yeah, what if it's all just wrong? There's this provocative new argument that suggests we should just stop. It basically says this whole pursuit of empowerment isn't a strength at all. It's a symptom, and it's making us miserable. Okay, so let's dive into the first big idea here, what's being called the empowerment hallucination. The core argument is that this entire quest for control, it isn't some noble goal. It's more like a cultural performance, one that just burns a ridiculous amount of our energy simply to maintain an illusion. And this desperate need for empowerment gets a really interesting name, egoic compensation. The idea here is that it's not actually a genuine desire for strength. Nope. It's more of a panicked reaction for when we feel vulnerable or small, or when things just don't make any sense. I mean, think about it. When do you crave control the most? It's usually when you feel like everything's spiraling, right? This urge is captured perfectly by this analogy. It's like buying a monster truck for your daily commute to the office. It's just massive overcompensation for feeling small.
So, okay, how does this actually become a problem? Well, that brings us to the diagnosis of power. See, this mindset forces us to look at any obstacle, any limit, and see it as a personal defect, a flaw in us.
And this desperate need to feel powerful, it's a direct sign that we've lost our sense of proportion, our sense of our actual place in the world. When life's chaos makes us feel destabilized, the ego panics, and it reaches for power as a cheap substitute for real clarity. And this is where it gets really dangerous. If you truly deeply believe you can just manifest any outcome you want, you stop paying attention to the actual terrain around you. You look at a solid brick wall and you don't see a wall. You see a limiting belief that you just need to think your way through. You literally sever the link between your own intelligence and what's actually real. And here it is. This is the misery generator at the heart of it all. If you can't solve a problem at work, or a relationship gets tough, or you get sick, you don't see that as just part of life. No, you see it as a personal failure. The little voice in your head says, I just wasn't empowered enough. Okay, so if empowerment is the trap, then what's the way out? What's the alternative? Well, that brings us to a totally different goal, something much more stable and sustainable: proportion. It's about trading in the sheer exhaustion of trying to run the universe for the quiet stability of knowing your actual coordinates within it. Just look at this comparison. It's so stark. The empowerment question is always, how do I get what I want? The world is just raw material for your will. But the proportion question is completely different and way more profound. It asks, what is actually mine to carry, and what is not? Just asking that question changes the entire physics of your life. So, how do you find your proportion? The idea is through something called contact. Here's a great analogy. Imagine you're walking through a pitch-black room. How do you find the coffee table? By painfully banging your shin on it. Ouch. But that shin bruise, that's contact. It's painful, sure, but it's incredibly useful information. It tells you exactly where you end and the rest of the world begins. Limits actually give you definition. And let's be real, some limits are just fundamental. We waste so much energy fighting against the uncontrollables. I mean, you can't defeat time with productivity hacks. You can't control the roll of the dice, that's chance. And you absolutely, positively cannot control other people, no matter how hard you try to. But here's the wild part, the paradox of it all. Accepting your limits doesn't make you weaker. It doesn't make you passive. It actually makes you more effective. It gives you a much higher quality of agency. Just think for a second about how much of your mental battery gets drained by trying to manage other people. Running those endless simulations in your head, having imaginary arguments in the shower. That's what's called performing power you do not have. It is pure wasted energy. The engine is revving like crazy, but the gears aren't even engaged. And this way of thinking totally reframes some classic virtues.
Take humility. It's not about pretending you're not great. It's a technical tool, kind of like focusing a camera lens. It just corrects the ego's distortions so you can see your actual true scale. And restraint. That's not being timid or passive. It's a powerful strategic choice to focus your limited energy only where it will actually have an effect.
This analogy just nails the core problem, doesn't it? We're all out here trying to build these magnificent, soaring cathedrals of control in our lives, but the foundation we're building on can only support a simple woodshed of influence. And then we stand back and wonder why everything feels like it's collapsing under its own weight. So what happens when you actually adopt this mindset? Well, your agency becomes precise instead of just inflated. You become faithful to the things you can actually touch and influence. Your speech gets cleaner because you stop making promises you know you can't keep, and your actions become timely. You learn to move with the grain of reality, not constantly fight against it. Which brings us to the core conflict, the ultimate choice that this whole idea presents. It's a choice between two paths, trying to dominate reality or learning to be faithful to it. See, empowerment is all about dominance. It's about trying to bend reality to fit your will. But proportion, that seeks fidelity. It's about aligning yourself with the true signal of reality, about getting in sync with what actually is.
It's like, think about high-fidelity audio. Hi-fi sound is true to the original recording, right? There's no extra distortion, no static. Well, spiritual fidelity is the exact same concept. It means perceiving and acting on what's real, without all the distortion and noise from your ego demanding that things should be different.
Here's a final, powerful way to think about it. You would never, ever trust a bridge that claimed it could hold infinite weight, would you? Of course not. You trust the bridge that has a posted weight limit because that bridge knows its limits. It knows its proportion. And when you know your own limits, you can finally truly trust yourself in the same way. You know, imposter syndrome is really just the gap between your inflated ego and your actual capacity. This mindset, it closes that gap.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. The very next time you hit a wall, a rejection, a frustrating delay, a simple no, what if you tried to see it not as a personal failure, but just as a coordinate, a data point on a map, pure information? If you could do that, how would your very next move change?